I'm Linda Hirsch.
And I'm Jerry Bernard.
And this is our 200th episode of EdCast, a program created and produced by educators for everyone interested in education.
We would like to thank our crew and our viewers for making all of this possible.
And thank you to BronxNet and CUNY TV.
Enjoy this 200th episode.
The term neurodiversity seems to be everywhere. But what does it mean? It was coined in the 1990s to fight the stigma against people with autism, ADHD, and learning disorders like dyslexia. It's now a movement to support people who are neurodivergent and to focus on developing their strengths and talents. Today, EdCast speaks with representatives from the Neurodiversity Alliance to talk about how they are working to improve the educational experiences for students who learn differently. My guests identify as neurodivergent, and their stories will enable us to better appreciate why it is important to acknowledge and understand the strengths, benefits, and challenges of this diversity. Coming up now on EdCast. Joining me today are Jesse Sanchez, Safia Mohammed, and Victor Edwards. Jesse Sanchez is the Neurodiversity Alliance's Manager Director of Programs. Jesse began his career working in Eye2Eye's mentoring program team. He then embarked on a decade-long career in the tech industry, contributing to companies like Google, LinkedIn, and multiple startups. In these roles, Jesse collaborated with leaders to undertake people and culture transformation initiatives. Jesse founded the Eye2Eye Alumni Board and later joined its board of directors. In 2024, Jesse answered the call to work full-time leading a neurodiversity program organization. When Jesse is not working, he enjoys spending time with his family in the outdoors. Safia Mohammed is a sophomore, pursuing a bachelor's degree in nursing. She enjoys listening to music, reading, spending time with friends, and watching Grey's Anatomy. Her connection to the Neurodiversity Alliance includes serving as a chapter leader at the Boerum Hill School for International Studies and attending 2 Learning Disabilities Day of Action events. Victor Edwards is the Central Student Advocate for New York City Public Schools. He's dedicated to fostering an inclusive school environment where all students, especially those with disabilities, feel welcome and have a voice. Victor works to ensure that students have access to the assistive technology they need, and he advocates the use of technology as a tool for communication and expression. Thank you all so much for coming on EdCast today. I want to start by asking Jesse for a definition. What is neurodiversity?
Neurodiversity is a concept that basically recognizes that it is completely natural and expected for there to be variability across people's brains and nervous systems. And what's important about it is that it's really strength-based, focused, as opposed to a more medicalized model of understanding people who have lived experiences like autism, ADHD, or dyslexia.
And what is the Neurodiversity Alliance, and what is your mission?
Yeah, so we are the largest student organization, nonprofit student organization, for and by neurodivergent students and allies. Our mission is to improve the educational experience and outcomes for neurodivergent students and to promote the neurodiversity paradigm.
And you are a student organization, which I think is so interesting. So what are some of the ways that you have of fulfilling that mission?
So the core piece is we have a national network of neurodiversity affinity clubs on college and high school campuses across the U.S. But that's just one piece of what we do. We really connect our students to concrete paid leadership and professional experiences to help them as neurodivergent students transition from education to the workforce. We also send our students into their local communities with our Eye2Eye mentoring curriculum where they can mentor upper elementary and middle school neurodivergent students.
And I know you also partner with Inclusive Schools New York City. Victor, can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
Yes, so Inclusive Schools NYC is an initiative all about building the culture around disability and really getting students with and without disabilities to understand and feel proud of their disabilities. Another key component of Inclusive Schools NYC is really making sure that all schools is fully inclusive. So we have different sub-initiatives out of that, like our Disability Pride and Affinity Club network, which we kindly teamed up with the Neurodiversity Alliance to really build our network and to really give as many opportunities as possible to the students.
Are you also intending to work more with CUNY schools? Is that coming up?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're actually in active conversations right now with College of Staten Island. We've historically had chapters at schools like Hunter College, but we are very excited to continue to deepen those relationships with CUNY and really would love to get more connected to administrators and folks in the system who could help us.
I think if they're listening, they'll hear about what the benefits are. You've outlined them so well. So let's go back to the Alliance clubs, which I think is really interesting. What are some examples of how a Neurodiversity Alliance club can make an impact on a school?
Yeah, I can see that. So, I mean, it can be as subtle and small as having a small group of neurodivergent students who are really feeling maybe the stigma, the struggle of being neurodivergent in an educational environment that's really built for neurotypical folks, and just knowing that there are peers that you can connect to and feel safe with, and even like share real strategies with, right? We've had other chapters of ND Alliance clubs that have advocated to their administration to move the location of their disability service office to a place that's more centrally located, so they don't feel like they're ostracized and having to travel to the outskirts of the campus to access their disability services, and then not make their classes on time, for example.
So you take care of all of that, which I think is really. We have, which I think is wonderful. We have some clips, they're brief clips, of students who've been involved in your program. So I'd like us to take a look and hear what they have to say.
I transferred to my current school in the middle of 6th grade year in the 3rd semester, and I was making no friends, and I was having a really hard time, and my teacher recommended me this program that had just started up at my school, and I went, and it was eye to eye in the end, and I came out with a bunch of new friends and new experiences, and I ended up staying with the program like till now, and I hope to in the future, but it really helped me, grow out of my shell and meet a bunch of new people.
Yes. I like being a mentor because I had the opportunity to work with really amazing little kids that really helped me connect to them and my own learning difference.
What did you think of what they had to say, Safia?
I think it's great knowing that I was a chapter leader for Eye to Eye, and I really felt connected with my mentors, knowing that they also had a learning difference. So working together to create a change for the young adults, I felt glad that I could be part of that change.
That's wonderful. Is there a range of neurodiversity that you deal with?
Oh yeah, I mean, neurodiversity is an umbrella term that really, recognizes a variety of experiences. I think most commonly people think of experiences like autism, dyslexia, ADHD, but it's a host of experiences. Our program and our students are typically students who are spending like 80% or the majority of their time in a general education setting. So I think that's worth mentioning.
Good. Now, why are you focusing on New York City?
New York City public school system is the largest public school system in the nation. It's very much looked to by other school systems in the country in terms of its best practices for pedagogy, for classroom design, for culture building. So yeah, we're really excited, and just the opportunity to make an impact on more students given the size and the need in New York City public schools.
So there is a large percentage of students in the New York City system who have a learning difference, who identifies having learning difference. I think it's 40% or something.
So as a matter of fact, one of the things that New York City public schools had shared with us recently is that autism specifically is the fastest growing kind of identification or diagnosis for students who have IEPs. And so, yes.
Okay. So let me go to Safia for a minute. What was your experience like as a neurodiverse student in the New York City school system?
My experience started off a little rough because it started when I was probably around in kindergarten or first grade. I realized even before the teachers knew I had a difficult time keeping up with the class. I would during tests I would realize that I wouldn't be able to finish them on time, and until I remember telling one of my teachers I'm not keeping up with the class, which made me feel discouraged because I wasn't like other students. And so then, the teachers looked at my progress throughout a couple months, and then they realized it was time for me to be evaluated. And when the results came back, they met with my parents, and they told them that I'm going to have an IEP, which meant I'm going to have accommodations to better my learning.
And anyone else want to say about what your experience was like as a student? Did you face particular challenges?
For me, I am a fairly recent graduate of New York City Public Schools, that's why I'm so glad that I'm able to now work with New York City Public Schools on the Inclusive Schools NYC team. But for me as a student, I was actually left back in first grade, in kindergarten and first grade, and then I was misclassified as well. So I was classified with an intellectual disability, which similarly, oh my God, I just felt like I wasn't learning to the highest potential that I could have been. And I just really started advocating for myself. I was like, there's something wrong. But for some reason, there was teachers and staff members that just didn't see that, and they continued to put me on those expectation paths, which then I was also ultimately assessed, which is a non-diploma granting track. But as time went on and I started advocating for myself, I started finding new ways for me as a neurodivergent that works. So, listening to audiobooks, listening to different podcasts, really finding out who I am. And once I left New York City Public Schools, because I did not obtain a high school diploma through New York City Public Schools, I demanded a reevaluation, which then came to light that I had dyslexia.
Good for you.
So
then they began to give you the IEP that directly addressed that.
yeah.
That's wonderful. So I want to ask, what has it done for you to be part of this Alliance community?
It's definitely, I can definitely say it has brought me a lot of joy working with young adults, seeing, just having that weekly art room. I would always see them making friends and socializing, but looking at the bigger picture, I realized that, like what I said before, that I'm making a change where I don't want students, I don't want young adults to feel like they're being, I don't want them to feel as if they're less than just because they have a learning difference. And I just want them to feel comfortable saying, I have a learning difference, and that they're also seeking the accommodations they need so they can be successful throughout their educational career.
Great. And did you have any particular struggles that you remember or that were significant for you?
Oh yeah. I was first identified as having learning and attention issues when I was in 6th grade. But for me, it really came to a head as a young adult. I was a product of the public education system in Los Angeles, went to my local community college, and when I transferred to my local public university, I had been someone who benefited a lot from access and programs and counseling for people who were first generation, Latino background. My family were involved with the incarceration system, low income, but nothing really prepared me or supported me around being someone who had ADHD and multiple learning differences. And that really came to a head as a first-year college student. We are neurodivergent students have much higher rates of dropping out compared to their neurotypical peers. And my first year, I think one of the things that I struggled with the most was just the stigma and the internalizing of that stigma, the sense of shame and feeling like I wasn't, I didn't belong or I didn't earn kind of my place at my university. And it wasn't until I received an email from one of the centers on my campus about the opportunity to start an ND Alliance chapter where I realized this is probably a good thing for me to do in terms of finding other fellow students who are kind of hiding in the shadows and the shame of this shared experience so we can kind of share resources, share support, and build our confidence. Yeah.
So if there's one thing you could improve about New York City schools to support neurodiverse students, what would you want to see?
When a student says that they need help, I want the teachers to know that, I want the teachers to understand where that student is coming from. It's not just, okay, I'll help you with one question and then they walk away. I feel like that's like a challenge that I faced. And so I feel like when a student is telling their teacher they need assistance, they actually need it so they can know how to like complete their work in a timely manner and everything.
So from where I sit, that translates into better professional development.
Yes.
For teachers to have a better understanding and a better appreciation of what a neurodiverse student is going through and being able to address those needs. That's the voice that I hear. So what about for you, Victor? If there's something that could be improved, especially since you're working with the schools, what would you like to see?
Something I would definitely say, which I think this would probably be an answer for a lot of people, more clubs.
More
right?
clubs.
We need more clubs. We need more affinity spaces and more safe spaces for students to be able to advocate for themselves and to be able to make that equitable change. Another big thing is I feel like we get caught up in the fact of education is all about academics. Even though academics is very important, we also still need to see that students are humans and they need people to speak to.
Great answers. In terms of your hopes and dreams for the future, we all have them or should. How do you feel your affiliation with the Neurodiversity Alliance, or do you feel that your affiliation with the Alliance is going to help you further that? What are your goals, and do you think this is a way of getting some of that support?
My personal goal is to graduate the nursing program and
It's a tough program.
it is to pass my NCLEX and hopefully work in a hospital in the profession I really enjoy.
And do you think being part of this alliance is contributing toward you reaching that goal?
Yes.
Okay. And what about you, Victor? What is your long-term goal?
So my long-term goal is to actually go to college for educational studies and really be able to build out more initiatives like the one I have done with the Disability Pride and Affinity Club Network in New York City Public Schools, and really start building these different culture affirming spaces around the city. And making other initiatives that's really going to make our schools more inclusive and really hone into the Heart's Ladder paradigm, which is all about youth and adult partnership. So really that's like my goal.
Now you also attended the Alliance's Ambassador Summit. What was that?
Yes, so it was a wonderful summit that was hosted by the Neurodiversity Alliance. I remember we learned so many different things about neurodiversity and also inclusion in general. And for me, we had like two different paths. We had the ambassador, the student ambassador, and then there was the social media ambassadors. That was a really fun experience for me. It was, first thing I can definitely say is I felt like it was family. I was a part of the family, even though that was like my first big interaction with Neurodiversity Alliance. And it was so inspiring to me. And I also picked up a lot of cool tips and tricks, actually, between Jesse and their founder and CEO, David
Flink.
David Flink.
Yeah.
I've learned so many different things. That's why I'm just like so grateful for them. me playing with fidgets and really being vulnerable when I speak was one of the big things that I've learned from that summit, and I use it every time I go out and speak and have a conference, so I love it. It was
I think
absolutely
my
amazing.
pen is my fidget. I think everybody
There we
who
go.
comes to be a guest here and me, we all want sort of like something in our hand or something that's probably my pen, I think. All right, so before we talk about how people can start clubs, which I think is really important to share with people today, I want to get to one point that's come up, and it was actually brought up in a conversation I had with the Neurodiversity Alliance. And that is one of the key areas of pushback that you might get is that people who are not neurodivergent resent some of the accommodations that are given to neurodivergent students, like extra time on an exam. So I just want to run a clip of someone from, maybe you can tell us what we're going to be watching,
so we're going
Jesse.
to watch a brief clip from one of our student leaders, Holden, who was the founding chapter leader of his ND Alliance, Neurodiversity Alliance Club, at his school, and he's going to talk about his experience with his point of view on disability accommodations.
And then I want you all to tell me what you think of what he said, okay? So let's listen to Holden answer this question.
I think it's important for neurodiverse young people to have accommodations because without those accommodations, I don't believe the full potential of a person with neurodivergency is being shown or is allowed to even really exist in and of itself. For example, I used to rush on all of my math tests because I knew if I wasn't given the correct amount, if I wasn't given enough time, I simply wouldn't finish it. So I'd have to rush through. And rushing leads to mistakes. And a lot of them were very obvious mistakes. But I had to rush through because I wouldn't have had time if I were to take my time and actually fully lay out a problem and try and solve it on my own. So I think the importance of the accommodations is that they allow a student or a person to show their full potential, to show where their thinking actually goes. Their thinking is slower, but I think there's a false correlation with slower equaling less intelligent or less creative. Slower does not really correlate to anything. If anything, I believe it correlates to thinking more deeply, thinking more abstractly about these concepts.
So, do you agree? Did he nail it? Did he leave something out? What do you think? Do you agree?
For me, I definitely agree. It's evening the playing field. That's how I see it. You know, for me, when I found what was best for me, I was astonished. I thought that was like, oh, this is what I absolutely needed for me to truly thrive. And it's all about, like when it goes to accommodations, it's not about, oh, this person's cheating because they're getting this. No, it's about an even playing field because this person may, they have a different learning style. So they cannot go as fast as some people can go. And they might need extra time or they might need a small modification with something. But that's fine. We're all learning at the same time. So
An even playing field. He also mentions that being faster doesn't necessarily mean smarter or better, and I was very taken by that as well. So that, as I said, has been one of the criticisms, and I guess this really gives people, I hope, watching something to think about. So let's go to neurodiversity clubs, and how can people start them, and how did you even find out about the ones that you got involved with?
Yeah, I can talk about the process of starting a club, and then it'd be really interesting
I'm just
actually to
curious
hear
to know how people
each
found
of you
them.
found out, how you found about ND Alliance and how you
how'd
found
you
out
find
about
out?
your
Yeah.
club. So it's incredibly easy to start a club. Any student can start a club on their campus, or a faculty advisor or a member of administration can get started. It's zero cost whatsoever. It's really a three-step process. It's assemble your leadership team, get 2 student leaders together and some type of staff advisor. Then it is register with us on the website. We want to be able to support you. We have a whole host of toolkits, resources, and staff who will walk you through the process of making sure your club is successful. And then it is host your first kickoff event. Get out there in the world and create an event in a space on your campus where students can gather.
And your website information will be on screen for people watching.
Great.
So they can get that. So I wrote a note for myself, 2 student leaders and an advisor, and get in touch with the Neurodiversity Alliance is pretty much all it takes to get started.
That's all it takes.
I know that April is an important month for you. Can you tell us a little about what's coming up in April?
Yes, we're celebrating disability or neurodiversity awareness. Do you want to talk a little about some of the events that you guys are doing with Inclusive Schools NYCs?
Yeah, so we're actually having a wonderful summit, which we call the Inclusion Summit, which this year's theme is We Tell Our Stories, and really trying to gauge that conversation of the importance of our stories and why stories matter, and how our stories can actually make a really big change in our communities. So we're gonna be having workshops. We're gonna be having an art experience with our artist Kyle Holbrook. We're going to be having so many different activities that students can go in and out. We're also going to be having a movie screening with our other partner, the Real Abilities, which is we're going to be having a movie screening because they are one of the world's biggest disability film festivals. So
Is it like a film festival? A sort of?
yeah, so their summit is also the same time as ours. So it's going to be a really exciting day for students, a really big opportunity.
That's wonderful. And I also, here in my notes, I have that there's a CUNY Neurodiversity Conference in May. Can you tell me anything about that?
Yeah, we will be attending. We will be in attendance. We may have some of our student ambassadors speaking about their kind of journey to empowerment as neurodivergent students.
Running out of time, I want to give each of you sort of an opportunity to talk about what is the takeaway if people are watching today and they either are neurodivergent or they know someone who is. What do you want them to take away? What's the most important thing for people to know about this area?
I would just say two things. One, if you're neurodivergent or you know or love someone who's neurodivergent, I guarantee you do, because we're at least 1 in 5 of the population. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You have everything about about the things that make your brain different to celebrate, and there are things about you that are great strengths and gifts to the world. And get in community. Find community, and if there isn't one near you, create it, and reach out to us, and we'll help.
That's terrific. And
He basically said what I was going to say, but just to also say, just be yourself. It doesn't hurt.
self-acceptance is
Yeah.
sort of what you're saying, and I think
Definitely.
self-acceptance is something is so important, I think, for everybody. I mean, we all have things about ourselves that we have to accept. What about you, Victor? What would you like people to know about?
What I would want people to know about is that we all have rightful presence, right? We all belong here, so if you're not neurodivergent, don't make someone feel like they're less than just because they learn different. Make everyone feel like we are all a part of a community, because we are.
We're completely out of time. I want to thank you all so much for coming here today, Safia Mohammed, Jesse Sanchez, Victor Edwards, and sharing not only your expertise, but your personal experiences. I think they have so enriched my understanding of neurodiversity, and I'm sure the same is true for people who are watching. So thank you again. That's it for this edition of EdCast. Be sure to see us next month.
All right, take 2 and 3, 2, 1.
We'd like to hear from you. Please send your thoughts and comments to cunyedcast@gmail.com.